Good day, good morning. Here we go. We are finally here. Remember, we had Tasty Tariff Tuesdays. Guess what today is? Today is actually tariff takeoff time. That's right. So I hope everybody already went out, bought their wigs, bought their other little things that they need to get. Anything that's coming from China or somewhere else, and you might be affected by it, make sure you get it. All right. Because I don't want you to have to say, you know what? He told me months ago, get that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So, even before the election, get that stuff. Because guess what? Now, you know what I'm saying? These bundles are going to be out of control. You know what I'm saying? But seriously, so yesterday I go to the supermarket and, I'm thinking to myself, let me just get a couple things, some turkey bacon, some eggs, a couple of little things like that. Stuff came out to like $70. You know what I'm saying? For just like a couple little things. And so I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, let's see. The gas for regular gas is still over $3 in the region I'm in Philadelphia. Some places you can go and get it for like 285, whatever. But for the most part, still basically around election time prices. A few months before election. Also, gas bill, home gas bill, no real difference. Still pretty high. Also, too, haven't bought a home, so I don't know how people's home rates are. But if you could definitely comment about it if you just have purchased a home. I know about the car industry, so a lot of people. Once upon a time, when you had good credit, you could get a car for at two. I've bought cars before at 2%, 3%, and when my credit was messed up at 20%. But over recent years, they've been really low. So the average car loan right now is being approved at, I think, between 6 to 7%, even with people with good credit. But hey, I haven't bought a car in a while, but from the research, that's what it's saying. So it's a couple of things that, we want to point out. All right. Because Trump has come into office and said a lot of things about, hey, we're going to get this done. We're going to try to cut the Department of Education. Hey, we're going to try to do this. We're getting rid of U.S. aid. We're cutting back on this, cutting back on this, cutting back on that, cutting back on that. But remember, one of the stances that he took, or one of the issues that he wanted to bring up, two things. Of course, we know the first one is immigration, right? So, yeah. So he wanted to take on immigration. So took care of that. And what people may not know is that it literally costs billions of dollars, and you can research it, costs billions of dollars just to get rid of a few million people. Billions of dollars to get rid of a few million people or to deport a few million people. So it's not like some kind of cheap thing where you just round everybody else up, put them on buses or planes, drive them down to Mexico or wherever you want to send them back to, and just say, go ahead, back over. No, it's a lot deeper than that. All right. So they ran on that platform. They also said that it was a big thing about the economy. So that brings us to now, because if you did have an opportunity to watch his speech that he gave a few weeks ago, he talked about the tariffs and how he kind of made a joke about it, how he didn't want to start it on April 1st because it's April Fool's Day, so he didn't want people thinking that he was joking or he was a joke or something like that. But what really happens is that it starts today. It starts today. But for many of us, it started a while ago, and it's been going on. But remember, hey, look, he told the American people, whether you voted for him or not, hey, listen, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get the gas prices down. We're going to you guys are paying too much for eggs. You guys are paying too much for food. You guys are paying too much for this, for that. So can we get any executive orders? Can we get any orders to thwart any of that kind of stuff? Can we get some kind of relief as far as any of that stuff is concerned? Because I hear you talking. I hear you talking about, like I said, you're doing all of these cuts. You have, what's this guy's name? Elon Musk, as far as being the head of Doge, which stands for the Department of Government Efficiency, right? So you're cutting all of this stuff. You're threatening people with their Social Security. and all the other kind of stuff. And hey, look, I'm no political scientist or analyst, but what I will say is that you ran and talked about doing things for people based off of what they were going through, what they were feeling. You cashed in like he always does, and he did it before. Cashes in on basically playing people, telling them this is really what you want, but ultimately it's still not what you get. And for any of us that go to a gas station on a regular basis, especially drive, we see it, we feel it. When we go into the supermarket, we see it, we feel it. It's not one of these deals where it's, yeah, you know what? Trump signed all these orders in, and so now these eggs are a lot cheaper. Yeah, you know what? He signed executive orders that, hey, look, the federal taxing on gas is going to be lower, so therefore gas nationwide will be lowered. Haven't seen any of that kind of stuff, right? But these were all his talking points. So tariffs, because of course they've been, they're just a part of life, right? Taxing, all that other kind of stuff is a part of life. Like I remember I used to say to people, like, think about it like this: you have, say, for instance, you go to the store, right? You buy yourself a Coke. All right. So you get a Coke, and I know here, like a 20-ounce bottle of Coke now is just for round numbers, we'll just say it's $2.50, right? So when I go to the store and buy that Coke, I got to pay taxes on it, right? So think about any good you got buy, but we're just going to talk about the Coke. So the Coke has to come from the manufacturer, right? So the manufacturer, which is Coca-Cola itself, gets taxed. At what level, who knows, but they pay some sort of taxes, right? So then when it goes from them to the supermarket, once the supermarket sells it, there is another tax, right? Or let's say if it goes to, I'm sorry, let's say if it goes from the manufacturer to the vendor, to their vendors, then to the supermarkets, or however it goes. So already by the time you get that soda, because of course, since the supermarket has to pay a tax on it, you have to pay a tax on it. So already that Coke that you have and love, you've paid that one bottle of Coke has been taxed at least 3 times for one bottle of Coke. So you start to say to yourself, like, you know, if everything is already taxed and, we get used to it, because even if you think of it like this, like he tried to pull the other thing saying, yeah, because, we're going to try to get Americans with no tax on any overtime, no tax on any of that stuff. But the deal is that think about it, your entire life, especially if you work for somebody, which most of us have, somebody else gets your taxes before you do. Isn't that crazy? Like how, like when you really, and we all know this, of course, but when you really start thinking about it, you get paid, but somebody gets paid before you. All of the taxes and everything are taken out before you even get to see a dime of your money. All right. So we've all learned how to live with taxes, but good God Almighty, who wants to live with more taxes? Who wants to live with additional taxes? Who wants to worry about, wow, I got to pay more for this because this guy who's come in and become president is just like starting fires everywhere. But the things that he ran on don't seem to affect anywhere because they're not directly affecting the everyday person like he claimed they would. Now, I know some people will say, well, you know what? Especially people who are on the Republican side or our secret friends who voted for Trump. They'd probably say, hey, look, give him some time. It's only been a few months or whatever. Yeah, but you know what? In those few months, he has not had any problems with inflicting tyranny and people feeling terrible and disgusted and telling people they got 15 minutes to clear out their desk or an hour or whatever the case may be. Just doing things that, like I always talk about, just not being civil, just not being a decent person, for lack of better words or bigger words, just not being a decent person. And you have people that ride with this type of, and I've said it before, type of bully behavior. You have people that think that, oh yeah, well, I'm down with Trump. So guess what? You know what? I'm on the right side of things. Well, and I was talking to a buddy Ray last night, and we were talking, and I told him, even with what Biden did, as far as forgiving student loans, right, or forgiving some people student loans or whatever. Well, a lot of the people that ride with Trump or that are part of his constituency, they either are rich enough to where their parent just wrote a check, or they're broke enough and never even went to college, couldn't care less about college, right? So his demographic of people, that might not have been such a great thing that they were even thinking about or worrying about. But he riled his troops up on the fact that, although I still believe a big portion of it is sexist because they didn't want to vote for a woman. But the thing is that he still has found a way to galvanize his troops based off of what he's going to do for you, what he's going to do for us. Because although I didn't vote for him, I'm still one of us, one of these people in this country. But all these other things that are supposedly getting done so fast, so fast, so fast. Okay, when is the trickle down effect going to happen to the people? So now these tariffs are in place, and of course, we're going to revisit. We're going to revisit it, but I just want to know, and I want to ask you, how do you feel about what's going on? And most of us, and even me, because I still got a lot to learn, don't even fully understand the extent or the gravity of what's going to happen as far as when it comes down to how effective, ineffective, or what effect it's going to have on us as consumers on a daily basis. All right. Because I'm telling you, you know what I'm saying? Regardless of who the president is, since all of this stuff has been high, you know what I mean? I don't lost like 3.5 pounds. All right. So I lost like 3.5 pounds, but that's another story. So the question I got is that, do you think that they're going to affect you? Do you think that they're going to affect me? Or do we just keep going on and saying, you know what? One day it's going to be all right. But hey, who knows? So until next time, live life. Don't let life live you.